The last day of summer, chapter 29. The missing Sheed. Sheed did not know where he was exactly. He was jerked left, wrenched right, yanked up, and lurched down. It was like being stuck inside a rolling water balloon, but instead of actual water, the balloon was filled with a galaxy of stars, making him an astronaut with no suit. He held onto the camera he'd been entrusted with because there was nothing else to hang on to. His stomach was not going to tolerate this ride much longer. Just when he thought a vomit comet was about to fly, he stopped moving. No more bouncing, just stillness, settling his gut. The night balloon he'd been trapped inside popped like a soap bubble, and he landed on a hard floor surrounded by clock watchers, among them the black-suited Mr. Flux. From the ground, the towering man seemed 1,000,000 feet tall, 2,000,000 if you counted his hat. He bent at the hip and stretched his spaghetti arms, his flattened dough hands, and his spider-leg fingers towards the camera. Sheed tried scooting away, but his path was blocked by the sweaty, dripping clock watcher who tossed Time Star around back at Petey's. "Crunch time," Mr. Flux said. "Give the boys some breathing room." The sweaty hulk backed away, a light rain of perspiration pattering on the wooden floor. As the disgusted Sheed avoided the puddle Crunch time left behind, he barely felt Mr. Flux lift the camera strap from his neck. "Hey!" Mr. Flux examined the device, which looked tiny and toy-like in his ghoulishly stretched hands. His satisfied grin lengthened to a point where it might split his head in half as he peered through the viewfinder and pointed the camera at Sheed. Sheed braced himself, or rather tried to relax into a comfortable position he might be okay with should he be stuck in it for all eternity. The pose he settled on was something like a baseball player sliding into third base, but with his head propped on his elbow as if taking a nap. It was a pose he'd seen on Grandma's old R&B album covers. She said when singers posed like that, you knew they were feeling good about their music. She'd wanted to feel good about being stuck forever, so it seemed like the right move. He waited for the inevitable, time-freezing flash. "Go on," Sheed said, sounding braver than he felt. "I ain't going to beg you not to." Mr. Flux lowered the camera. "I was hoping we could talk, actually." Was this a trick? It had to be. Surrounded out of options, what choice did Sheed have but to play along? "Talk about what?" "Walk with me, Rashid." He didn't move, fearing a sudden flash at the awkward moment he attempted to stand and being stuck half bent over, staring at his shoelaces forever. Mr. Flux said, "I promise, if I'm going to freeze you, I'll allow you the opportunity to position yourself as you like. Hopefully that won't be necessary. I'm all about opportunity, as you'll come to know. Please walk." Pushing himself off the ground, Sheed found himself among a gang of clock watchers, rivaling the library gathering. A bunch of second guessers and Minutemen who'd obviously abandoned Father Time and switched sides. The person-shaped living galaxy Nighttime, plus many, many, many more. They parted as Mr. Flux moved, creating a path in this cramped, standing-room-only place, wherever they were. The floor was made of solid wooden planks, old and knotty. Dim light beamed through gaps in boarded-up windows. Above their heads, the frozen wheels, barrels, hooks, flies, cams, gears, and all the other intricate parts of Fry's giant clock. They were in the tower at Town Square. 10:04 a.m., Mr. Flux said, pointing at the gears overhead. All those precise parts to tell the people of the town what time it is, where they should be at said time, what they should be doing. Yet it doesn't really tell anything, does it? The clock watchers around them murmured, shifted uncomfortably. "Oh, don't take that the wrong way," Mr. Flux told the room. "I'm not diminishing your former roles. I'm just expressing to the young man that time itself is not what determines a human's actions. It's not time that tells a woman when to be at her office. Her boss may dictate the length of the workday, then she chooses whether to be early, late, or on schedule. Isn't that right, business hours?" A group of clock watchers, half of them women and half of them men, all in matching blue suits, raised brown leather briefcases in an affirmative salute. Mr. Flux continued, "When a child is naughty and is sent to sit in a corner, who insists on the length of punishment? Tell us, Time Out." He pointed to a pouting, taller-sized clock watcher with pigtails. Her arms were crossed and one leg tantrum stomped. Time Out said, "The mean mommy or daddy?" "Exactly. Do you see, Rashid? Yet another example of humans deciding what to do with time, with opportunity. How often do you think they make the right decisions?" They'd walked to just beneath the clock face, where the outside light glowed honey gold through its translucent glass cover. From inside the tower, the Roman numerals were reversed. The huge bells responsible for hours, gongs, were giant sleeping bats in the gloomy rafters above. Mr. Flux waited for an answer. I don't know, Sheed said honestly. It wasn't something he'd ever considered. Nor do I. I can tell you one human whose error caused me grave pain. She'd suspected he knew the human Mr. Flux spoke of. Petey Thunkle did not use his time wisely. Not a grave sin in itself, but there was a single critical moment that changed everything. Would you care to hear about it? There was no choice here. This was one of those rhetorical things Otto liked so much. She'd nodded and settled in for Chapter 30, The Terrible Tale of Petey Thunkle's Missed Opportunity. Petey Thunkle wanted only normal smarts, because then maybe he'd get only normal teased. But Petey had smarter smarts than the smartest students at Fry High. As a freshman, he quickly worked his way into the most advanced science and math classes the school offered, stunning every teacher at every turn, particularly on project days when Petey showed up with inventions of a mind-boggling variety. He gave chemistry teacher Mr. Golden a grade sorter, a machine that scanned the room, identified each student in their current seat, then sorted graded papers into the proper order, preventing the teacher from the inefficient practice of zigzagging all over the place when he needed to return exams. Mr. Golden loved it, gushed about it in front of the whole room. Now I can get y'all your D's and F's much faster. No one laughed at that joke. Still, Mr. Golden loved Petey, and if teachers loved Petey, students hated Petey. With the exception of the lovely and sweet Anna Archie, who had been voted nicest person every year since kindergarten. She said, I think your grade sorter is an awesome idea. Besides, I get A's, so I'm happy to have my test back faster. As wonderful as Anna was, her kindness did little to soften Fry High's general treatment of Petey. By the time Mr. Golden finished lavishing him with praise, even the nerds were bullying Petey, though no nerd could outdo Master Bully Donnie O'Doyle. At this point, Mr. Flux stopped the story and passed a hand over his own face. My stunning resemblance to that low-life O'Doyle is but one result of Petey's curse, and perhaps the least of them. You shall see. Physical harm was not Donnie's greatest skill. His verbal violations were heavyweight punches, his shouted slander, kung fu kicks, his boorish barbs, poisoned blow darts, all bruising, breaking, and slowly killing Petey's spirit. If Petey brought a new invention to school, Donnie would say it was ripped off from the Home Shopping Network. Not true, of course, but it didn't have to be. If Donnie caught wind of Petey acing another math test, he'd say Petey was only good in math because he smelled like dog crap and needed to calculate the range of his own stench. Always getting picked on, always getting laughed at, and all while fighting the natural doubts every person is prone to while trying to create. It wore Petey down. The genius inventor didn't want to stand out anymore. He wanted invisibility, to disappear. People didn't bully what they couldn't see. Near the end of freshman year, he had a chance. Mr. Golden, still getting maximum usage from his beloved grade sorter, raved about the design to one of his former classmates, the director of a big city think tank in Richmond, Virginia. This particular think tank was the Turing Unified Research and Development Institute. On the teacher's recommendation, they were interested in having Petey take a coveted summer intern position. Mr. Golden explained think tanks were groups of smart people who worked on solving the world's problems. These positions are usually reserved for college students, he said, but I showed them your designs and grades and told them I think you're a smart young man who can use this shot. They want to meet you. It's the chance of a lifetime. At this same time, the spring production of Lincoln, the true story of Honest Abe's honesty, was well into rehearsals, with opening night looming. Good news because Petey's wonderfully innovative holographic set designs would be displayed for the whole town. Bad news because Donnie O'Doyle had somehow managed to be cast as Lincoln, so they saw each other every day, during school and after. The teasing was bad, but whenever Donnie got Petey with a good one, Petey touched the Turing Institute letter in his back pocket, knowing his interview was coming up. For the first time in his life, he was confident things would go his way. Until the day he lost the letter. It was the final dress rehearsal, and Donnie had called him P.P. Petey to get the new other actors and crew members laughing and relaxed. When Petey reached for his lucky letter, it wasn't in his pocket. He reached between all of his holographic projectors and mounted in the catwalks above the stage and other auditorium seats and in the bandstand. Found nothing. Only deep into the play's final act did he notice a white scrap of paper visible behind a flickering holographic prop stove he'd been working on earlier. Donnie gave his final rousing monologue. right before the John Wilkes Booth character snuck up on him. Petey, unable to resist, stepped from behind the backdrop, hoping to snatch his letter unseen. Donnie, supposedly assassinated by then, was peeking and shouted, "Hey, what you doing, P.P.?" Donnie Lincoln's returned from the dead, ran over and snatched Petey's letter. For once, Petey fought back, attempting to reclaim what was his. Donnie held the letter out of reach as he read it. "Wait," Donnie said, and the auditorium went quiet. "Do y'all know Petey has a meeting with a think tank on Saturday?" Unsurprisingly, no one in the room seemed to grasp the significance. That didn't stop Donnie. "Turing Unified Research and Development Institute. That sounds like a pretty big deal, Petey. Is it a big deal?" "Why, yes," Petey said, "it is a big deal. The Turing Institute is one of the biggest think tanks in the country." "Huge, huge?" Petey, feeling proud, said, "Ridiculously huge." Donnie nodded, gently handed back Petey's letter, and said, "Good stuff, bro. Turing Unified Research and Development Institute. Tell me something. Did you notice what the initial spells?" She, familiar with acronyms because of the BTS FOASTG on Grandma's calendar, considered Donnie's question and, dang, understood just how bad things were about to go for Petey. The acronym for the Turing Unified Research and Development Institute was TURD. Donnie shouted. "Everyone, Petey is going to a huge turd institute." Donnie hooked his elbow around Petey's neck, dragging him to the edge of the stage in a headlock, leading a chant of, "Hey, huge turd, huge turd." Everyone in the auditorium joined in. Actor, stagehand, director. The doors at the back of the auditorium opened, and the roving yearbook photographer roamed in, needing a picture of the drama club. Petey's humiliation hit a new peak when he recognized her. It was Anna Archie. The chant continued. "Huge turd, huge turd." Sweet, kind Anna went to the director and pleaded with him to stop the teasing. He rolled his eyes and claimed they were all just having fun, but eventually asked the cast to give it a rest so they could take a picture. Even as the drama club posed for their group photo, Donnie maintained Petey's headlock, and Petey, not wanting to appear weak and abused in front of Anna, smiled as if he was in on the gag. Anna aimed her camera and instructed the group, "On three, say cheese. 1, 2, 3. The entire drama club said, "Huge turd," as the flash exploded. The photo of that moment was immortalized in the yearbook picture Otto and she would discover many years later. Mr. Flux, reaching the tail's end, said, "Petey never went to that interview. He decided then and there that no way he'd be caught dead at Turd Institute. He missed the opportunity Mr. Golden had granted him." With a reptilian sneer, Mr. Flux said, "That was the day I was born." Any questions?